The NCAA regular season is almost over, and frankly, you're not going to believe who we have on our first team All-American list. Let's talk about it here on Ball Up Top. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Ball Up Top. Tyler, Andrew, and Greer here, and folks, it's end of season. We got to talk all the way through these awards, and most notably here is first team All-American, I think, in terms of some of these races. And we were talking beforehand, and as I mentioned there in our cold open, I'm a bit shocked at some of the picks that I am getting ready to hear, but I am ready. I don't have my clever Shawnee intro, unfortunately, but I am excited to be here with the both of you. Of course, make sure you're tapped in across the board. If you're watching here on YouTube, we're on the road to 7K subs and eventually that 10K sub mark as well. Make sure you're subscribed here so you're not missing out on any No Cap Space content. If you're on podcast platforms, rate, subscribe, all those things to make sure you don't miss any episodes there as well. Are you ready to get into it?
Let's do it.
I'm ready. I'm excited.
Yippee. Do we start with the insanity or the normality?
Let's do the normality first. And
I think so too. So Greer, I'll start with you. And your 5 here for first team All-American. If I'm understanding correctly, I think me and you are a bit more in step and in rhythm here together on this.
Sorta.
Ooh.
Sorta. I feel like the first 4 players are locks. Mikayla Blakes, Sarah Strong, Lauren Betts, Azzi, Fudd. I do think that 5th spot is still open, and I think players like Jaloni Cambridge, I think Ava Hayden has made a late season push as well. I think Madison Booker and everything that she's helped Texas accomplish so far this season also has a great shot at it. And then you take the two girls out of South Carolina and Joyce Edwards, who certainly is going to put up the statistical case, right? But then you look at their leader and their 5th-year senior in Raven Johnson and the impact that she's had in all facets of their game. I feel like you're looking at probably one of the most competitive first-team All-American races in a very long time for that last spot.
Yeah. So, who are you leaning towards? Do you have someone you're leaning towards?
Leaning toward. Oh, and also I didn't mention it, but Kiki Rice also. I think also.
I don't think you mentioned Hidalgo as well, who was like.
I don't think Hannah has. Statistically, I think
statistically it has to be in the mention.
Yes,
I'm not saying
but
she would be 5th, but
I think all the players that I mentioned above Hannah have statistical case as well as team success.
Sure.
Notre Dame, if they make the field, are going to be limping in essentially, unless some heroics happen, which Hannah is certainly capable of in the ACC tournament, right? But I just think in the 3-ball, the percentage hasn't been there this season. I just think the combination of team success and individual story with the aforementioned candidates is just a much stronger case in Hidalgo. And if I had to choose a player today to round out my team, I think I'm gonna go. I'm going Raven Johnson. Fuck it.
The Glaze. I'm
going Raven. We talked off camera a lot about the expectations, right or wrong, for SC. She's the only player right on their roster who's won an SEC championship every single year that she's been there. They look poised to do it again. She takes their hardest defensive perimeter matchup every single time. And offense, she keeps them together. I know the stats. Actually, statistically, she's having the best season she's ever had. She is truly one of those players where stats probably just do not do her story justice in terms of all the impact that she is bringing. 100%. It could have been very easy for her to say, Ashlyn's out, Chloe's out. I don't know where we were picked to finish in the conference. It's all good. I'm going to the WNBA anyway. She could have easily said that. But no, I think they're going to be right back, in the later parts of March and April, potentially competing for a national championship again. And that's due in large part to the experience and job Raven Johnson has done this year.
I love that pick. I am not.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at that pick at all. My four that you, as you mentioned, the locks that you have, I agree with. That fifth spot is brutal. I think I love the Raven pick. Cambridge out of Ohio State to me is probably the one that comes to mind along with her as a potential fifth. I mean, again, we were talking about it on Sunday on our live. The potential of her having a legit case for Big Ten Player of the Year, and if Lauren Betts is a lock, you kind of have to put her into that conversation to be in that All-American if she's in the conversation to be potentially Big Ten Player of the Year. So I'm man, I don't even know who I pick between those two. I think that's where I'm at though, is between those two. You kind of sold me on Raven though. That, I mean, like, because you're right. I mean, across the board, the statistic season that she's had, I mean, she's been phenomenal, and the confidence that she's been able to build offensively. Obviously, the defense, we know what it is when it comes to Raven Johnson and her perimeter defense and just how disruptive she could be. The thing is, she might be guarding one player, but she can stop an entire offense just based on her perimeter defense alone, and that is not something that is incredibly common across the board in the nation. Let me ask before we get to yours, Andrews, because I know what happens after you say yours. Let me ask this. I assume you have Sarah Strong and Mikayla Blakes, yes?
As my 1 and 2?
For both of you. Andrew, on your list as well.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Okay, so just before we get into the debate on your 5, National Player of the Year, are we all Mikayla Blakes right now? I know that's where I'm leaning currently. I think that this month is like maybe not wrapped up yet, but I think that she's in the lead right now.
Yeah, I don't know when the voting takes place exactly.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to figure that out. Yeah, if we're going off, I mean, we shouldn't be going off February alone. It should be a full body of work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Mikayla's done that.
Mm-hmm.
In the Southeastern Conference, where the competition is thick. Vanderbilt has more wins than they've had in conference in like 18 years or something like that. And you can attribute a lot of that to Mikayla Blakes. Everybody knows the ball's going to her, and yet it does not matter. Yeah. She's in the middle right now of scoring 30 plus points over like a 4 or 5 game stretch.
Yeah, stupid.
I have no reason to suspect that that's going to go down or stop anytime soon either. Obviously, they have a big matchup versus the in-state rival Tennessee this Sunday. But it could be just a cherry on top to the season that she's had already. Yeah. I think she's had a number of signature performances that kind of put her on top of that. I get that Sarah Strong, offensive juggernaut, there's nothing she can't do, nowhere she can't score from. Defensively, I think also the metrics are going to be there, right? Like, we talked a little bit off camera about the defensive body of work where I feel like, yes, the stats are piling up, but if you're watching, it's a lot of gambling.
For Sarah.
Sarah. It's a lot of gambling. And on the other end, Mikayla's not a sieve on defense. You can't be in the SEC.
Yeah, facts.
You just can't be in the SEC and survive. But that's not how her team is constructed and built. Right? That's not the way that they play. So I don't want to penalize her for that when she's more than holding her own. Right now, yeah, I think it would be Mikayla for me.
Yeah.
I would have to agree. I mean, we said it on Sunday's show that the territory she's in is genuinely uncharted for SEC basketball under NCAA governance. The people that she's chasing are Marie Jackson, who honestly is a pretty fascinating story, like probably the first Australian collegiate women's basketball star in America in 1977 during the AIAW. There were 2 Australians that played for LSU, first ever Australians to get All-American honors in women's basketball. And nobody knows the name Marie Jackson. They know the name Lauren Jackson, but acquaint yourself with the name Marie Jackson, because when we start getting into the discussions of NCAA versus AIAW as it pertains to Mikayla Blakes, that name and Patricia Roberts from Tennessee are the 2 names that you are going to probably hear, in the same way that when Caitlin was approaching the scoring record, you started to hear Lynette Woodard and Pearl Moore's name a whole heck of a lot more. So just kind of for the purposes of understanding where she ranks in history, genuinely something that has not happened in the last 50 years with what her scoring averages in SEC play, and also what her actual total points scored might be depending on how deep they go. It's important to know Marie Jackson had 1,000 points in a season in the SEC, or I guess whatever proto SEC version existed in the AIAW, but that came over the course of 40 games. So, theoretically speaking, Mikayla Blake's could have another 10. And if she does, she's flying past that 1,015 all-time mark in SEC play. And at that point, I don't know how you don't hand it to her. However, and I think this is going to be the foundation of the argument that we are about to have as it pertains to first-team All-American, I don't really know what you do with the top 3 teams in the country right now, because all 3 are so some of the parts that some of the legitimate greatness is, I think, being obfuscated a little bit, and it really depends on what metrics you use. I see the argument for Sarah. Sarah Strong is 0.8% off 60, 40, 90.
It's so stupid.
Which, again, and that's coming with 19 points per game, 7.5 rebounds, 4.2 assists, 3.2 steals. And the steal to assist ratio is nearly 2 to 1. Assist to turnover ratio is nearly 2 to 1. Excuse me. But on sheer numbers, on the conference that you play in, you're averaging 26.5 minutes a game, which is wonderful if you're Gina Wariema, that you get to pace your superstar all the way until the NCAA tournament. But it also brings up this point of, what do we actually judge All-Americans and Players of the Year off of? Is this, and this has always been my argument to counter South Carolina fans that say, well, somebody like Aaliyah Boston at 16 and 10 is a National Player of the Year candidate. It's like, okay, how much are you willing to give up, right? Because if the argument is, well, we don't need the Player of the Year or the individual honors, we'll just take the ring at the end of the year and we win. Well, if it's one or the other, you might have to pick. You might not be able to get both here. And I think that is where I'm kind of standing with UConn, is you're probably my favorite odds on to win the national title again this year. So what would you rather? Would you trade a national championship in order to see Sarah Strong be Player of the Year, or would you rather she misses out on that award if it means you go back to back and kind of re-cement UConn as the machine, right? So I think there is a legitimate argument for both, but I mean, I've had a front row seat to Mikayla Blake's this entire February. I've frankly never seen it in the SEC before. I've never seen a player score like this in the SEC. And not that it has to be SEC exceptionalism. The Pac-12 Andrew of 2 years ago would be kicking present day Andrew in the nuts repeatedly.
This is pretty brutal, man.
How dare you? How dare you do this to us? But I'm kind of at a point where I'm like, dude, it'd be one thing if this was 25 a game. I mean, she's averaging over 30. She is torture chambering SEC defenses. And these are not bad teams that they played in February. She is not playing the dregs of the Southeastern Conference of Arkansas, Auburn, Missouri, Florida, Texas A&M. She's played Kentucky twice. She's played Oklahoma. She's played, who else has been in that mix? Texas. These are not scrub teams. These are Sweet 16 caliber or better matchups through the month of February, and she has basically run over all of them. And she's had help. Aubrey Galvin has been the second scorer that she's needed. But take Mikayla Blake's off this team, it is not going the same. And I know the argument tends to be, well, if you were to swap Sarah Strong or Mikayla Blake's, how much better would the teams be? I think they're probably both the same. I think they mean that much and are that good. That if you put Mikayla Blake's and Azzi Fudd together, they're making magic. You put Sarah Strong on this team with Aubrey Galvin in the front, in the backcourt, distributing to her. Odds are Vanderbilt's probably going to be just as good. So I think you can't go wrong with either. Now.
Oh, God. Here we go.
Let's get negative.
Here we go.
We're still talking about NPOY right now, right?
I'm about to move on to first team All-American. So if you have any NPOY.
No. We got to back up.
Okay. I was going to say,
because I do think that.
Before we go.
Yeah, I do think that the comparison to Aaliyah Boston in South Carolina is interesting, but I feel like that's more of a senior year Aaliyah Boston argument than it
is. It's more of a conceptual argument, right. Not as much a statistical like for like.
Now, where I feel differently is last year, Sarah, not coming in was an unknown quantity, but she was a third option on Connecticut's team.
Yeah.
This year she came in top dog. No drop off. I'm better, actually.
Yeah.
I'm better, actually. and I'm number one on everybody's scouting report. I am inevitable. I do things that, again, also my feel, my touch for the game, do things that doesn't even show up. I'm doing things in college that honestly no one outside of Juju. In terms of like feel, like first glance, that's the kind of feeling I'm like giving to the basketball world right now. You know what I mean? And I think that matters a whole hell of a lot.
I agree.
I think that matters a whole hell of a lot. Like, you know, do you know where like he hasn't got on his soapbox yet? You know it's coming, right?
Yeah.
You know it's coming. You know, it's like death and taxes, right? Like it's gonna happen. And when he does it, he's coming for your jugular.
We know what Gino is delayed.
Man after my own heart, truly.
Yeah, but although I feel strongly about Blake's, like I do have to point that out, that the transition from third option to first option has been seamless.
Yeah.
That's valid.
God, this is hard.
I mean, you guys,
I don't think it's as hard as prior years, like when we were doing Caitlin versus Aaliyah or Caitlin versus Paige. I don't know. This Blake Strong one is a legitimate toss-up.
I mean, dude, that's almost 60, 40, 90 is what we're like we're kind of tossing aside.
With the volume, with the range, with the distance.
No, it's legit. Like, I mean, that's the fact that, frankly, the fact that Mikayla Blake
went from playing the 5 last year for large parts of the year last year to now commanding it, bringing the rock up, initiating the offense, and doing it 60, 40, 90. I don't know. I might be swaying myself right here.
I was gonna say you're about to convince yourself.
Like realistically, the fact that we can sit here and say like legitimately like Mikayla Blake's for NPOY is ridiculous, because Sarah Strong is ridiculous. I mean, it's game breaking what Sarah Strong does, and to me, that's where I still think Sarah Strong is the best player in the country. I don't think that's close, frankly. There's things happening in stores that I've never seen before on a basketball court with Sarah Strong, but that's where the narrative aspect comes in, and a lot in this. And I do think that there is just something to the aspect of, because I don't always love the like, oh, if you switch their positions, like in terms of their situations, I don't always love that argument, because you can't, you know. But like I think it's easier to make the argument of, if you take these players out, what do these teams look like? And where Vandy is in comparison, obviously UConn would be much worse without Sarah Strong. But where Vandy is, I mean, think about it. Vandy was ranked like 7th in the preseason with Mikayla Blake's. We didn't think this team was going to be good to this degree, not even close. And yet here they are, and it's on the back of Mikayla Blake's. And yes, as you mentioned, Andrew, obviously there's been players that have stepped up in a lot of ways. The bigs have been more impressive and impactful than I anticipated. Obviously Galvin has been phenomenal over the course of this year. I think that's where the narrative comes in, where it's like and this is maybe also kind of the personal bias of it. I want to reward a player like Mikayla Blake's for going to a school like Vanderbilt and making them what they are right now. I want to reward that. And we've seen it. It's kind of it's different, but the same in kind of the makeup of the Caitlin aspect, where it's like, I like rewarding that, where a player not necessarily staying home, but Vanderbilt wasn't in the conversation. Like we had some eyes on it. We're like, oh, Sherrod's kind of building something here. What could this be? Mikayla Blake's blew the spot up. Now everyone knows what's going on with Vanderbilt. So to me, I like personally, and I think this will be the overlying opinion of the voters, rewarding that aspect. Even though, do I think Sarah Strong is the better player? Yes. I don't think I can ignore what Mikayla Blake's has done, both individually, statistically, but also narratively, and what the makeup of Vanderbilt looks like going forward as a program, due to how damn good Mikayla Blake's is at basketball. I don't think you can ignore that.
No.
I don't think you can ignore it either. But again, UConn was on a drought. Like, for all of they have the stranglehold on women's basketball. They went 9 years without winning, and it changed when Sarah got to Stores.
Sure.
They're in the process right now of maybe completing an undefeated season, going back to back. I also don't want to like look back later and go, And Mikayla can have a great career, but let's say that Sarah's on the brink of like doing something Stewie-esque, Diana-esque.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to look back and go, what the hell are we doing?
I don't think I feel that way though.
See, this is the argument though. Like, yes, I don't think it's debatable that she is the best player in women's college basketball. Like, I don't think there's a debate that she's the best prospect for the WNBA.
But like, this is not MVP. I don't know. That's where I feel
that's my point. Like, is this an argument? And this is, I guess, this is inside of you. There are two wolves, right? Like the duality of man and woman is like the concept of, if you are voting on this award, are you voting on it based on individual achievement in this year, or are you voting on it based on who the best player is? Because if it's the best player, I don't think there's a doubt Sarah Strong clears any player in college basketball right now. But I can't get by the year Mikayla Blakes is having. I just can't. I mean, through 14 games in the SEC, this kid is averaging 29.9 points per game. I mean, there has never been a player in the SEC that's averaged more than 25 ever going back to the start of the conference. She's already clearing that benchmark by 4.5 points, and we still have 3 games for her to be over 30 and eclipse that, individual number. You know, so it's like, and again, this is going to go right into the All-American battle we're about to have, because it's just, I just don't know how to assess this, and I can't get past the idea of your team can be a victim of its success when you stock the cupboard like this. And it's a different world than 10 years ago in women's basketball. You can't get away with putting 3 UConn players in the first team because the chasm between you and everybody else is so wide. I just don't see it working that way anymore.
I also don't think that's true, though. I also don't think that's true about the stockpiling. I think if now more than ever, like the talent has spread.
I agree.
UCLA has 2, Kiki and Lauren Betts were number 1 respectively in their classes.
Yeah. And I don't think, and honestly, I don't know if either of them make first team All-American.
I think Lauren Betts is a lock.
I think Betts can be a voting lock, but bro, I might be Kenny Brooks pilled. The more I dive into the numbers,
hold on. Whoa. Okay, let's pivot back into All-American with
wait, no, because I'm not done with
Go ahead.
Whack me again, Greer.
No, because it's with Sarah in particular. I think like there are some obvious things that we're like not talking about. The load management game, having to miss a game, right? Like if we're just laying all the facts out there, like those 2 things have happened this year. I also think that she has shown up in the biggest moments, and Mikayla has too, for what it's worth. Like a lot of coaches said, like you make the schedule 1 year, next year you can't predict that X, Y, and Z is going to be out. But I can think of like 2 games last year where Sarah like did not play well, and then in this year, those same 2 opponents came out and had stellar games in USC and Notre Dame. The other thing with Mikayla, I would be curious to know, because you're bringing up offense and the numbers, and again, I think it's incredibly impressive. I'm also just seeing people score that I never heard, so I would be curious to know about like offensively and how the SEC is skewing offensively, because this is a league historically that has been known as one of the strongest defensively
and run by the bigs,
right? I would be curious to this year, just anecdotally, feels like people are scoring more than ever, especially going late into the year where you see.
I agree with that.
points, 100 points. Like, I'm not a math nerd, but that's something I would be super interested to know.
So the last thing I'll say on that is I think some of that is a function of the type of system Shea Ralph employs in this league. I think you are right. I think there is kind of a trending move to more offense that we're seeing. I think bringing in Oklahoma has done part of that, where they like to get out and run. Mm-hmm. I think Kentucky bringing in Kenny Brooks is another one, because their offense is very heavily predicated on movement. And so is Shea Ralph's. I mean, look, there are teams in the SEC, Texas, that do not shoot threes with like significant regularity. And that used to be the modus operandi of this entire league. And now you are starting to see people finding the market inefficiency in there. And so, yeah, to your point, I agree that some of that's a function of the changing league. But, man, not everybody's doing what she's doing, man. I don't know. I just don't know. I'm glad I'm not a voter this year, bro. My ballot would be getting castigated everywhere if I put it out this year. Mm. Maybe I'll put out my USBWA ballot again when the voting comes around, because I know that comes out in like I think voting for that starts in a couple weeks, and I've been a member for a few years, so I put my ballot in last year, and I think that was I did a whole run through on NCS about that, so maybe I'll do that again this season. Let people whack me in yellow.
Transparency in voting, Andrew. We love
what
it.
A novel concept.
I know. Well, God, we could start now. To pivot back to first team. God, that was not in the rundown for the show, but you know what? I'm glad it happened. Andrew, 26 minutes in, 27 minutes in. You're first team All-American. We started with normality. We got sidetracked. Let's come to maybe what some will think is the absurdity.
All right, Strong and Blake's are locks. Mm-hmm. So we're sitting at 2 out of 5. I have a hard time not putting Jaloni Cambridge in here. I have a really hard time. Like I think she is a pick for me in there, because she's an example of, you take her off Ohio State and this team is markedly worse. Mm-hmm. I think she's been the most underappreciated player in women's college basketball this year. Ohio State is number 13 in the country. They're 23-5. They are one of a small handful of teams that has held serve with a couple of the best teams in the country. I think we're going to find out a lot about them in the next 2 games. They play Michigan at home, and then they go on the road to Michigan State. I think if Cambridge puts up a couple master classes. I mean, she had 33 and 16 in the fourth quarter against USC. And yes, I know USC is a little down this year, but we talk about moments, right? I think you have opportunity here to have 2 big moments against 2 big teams if you're Ohio State. Now, granted, this team got run off the floor by UConn earlier in the season. So, if we are going to throw, one player against another, Jaloni had 7 turnovers in that game. She had 17 points on 50% shooting, but she had 7 turnovers. That type of stuff does cost your team. At the same time, I have a hard time, because I skew, as a voter, as a USBWA voter, not an AP voter, I skew towards your individual achievement this year. And maybe that's my own criteria that is flawed, but I tend to dock teams sometimes. If there's 4 of you on a team that all can be in that realm, well, if that's the case, you built your team to have 4 second or third team level All-American players. It takes a really special one to distinguish themselves as the first. And that's why I think Strong is kind of on that list. I'm going to put Joyce Edwards in here alongside Cambridge, Strong, and Blake's, because I think this South Carolina team, I have just been stunningly impressed by. We said it in the pre-show. I had them maybe as a coin flip for 3rd in the SEC this year. If you had polled me at the start of the year, I probably would have told you Texas was going to win. And I would have said that there was equal amounts of possibility that SC could finish 2nd or 3rd, depending on if they flip with LSU or not. John Staley has made a fool out of us all again, right? Like, you lose to Oklahoma. I mean, that's fine. That's fine. I'll leave that.
Look, my poll had they had number one in mine.
That's fine. Like, I mean, but look, like, I wrote this after the Oklahoma win in Norman. Like, when you are the standard bearer program, we tend to over-index on what your losses are, and then we look up and you've only lost like 2 games this entire year. And those 2 games being, this kind of random, weird overtime game where Aaliyah Chavez just goes thermonuclear in overtime, and then this close matchup to Texas that's at the very start of the year that doesn't even count toward the SEC standings. I think Joyce has just been consistent, like just up and down consistent as a sophomore this entire year. You've seen really a multitude of games in which she's played really great. I think the only one that sticks out as a real dud matchup was that LSU game where she had 10 points. But in the last couple of games, man, 23-12 against Bama, 21-6 against Ole Miss, 20-8 against Tennessee, 16-7-6 on 7-10 shooting against Vanderbilt, dud against Oklahoma. We'll dock for that. 14-8 against Texas, even though that was a lower efficiency game. But she's really kind of been playing with good, consistent regularity, and that's relative to some of the other front court options. The last person in here, because now if I've got Cambridge, Joyce, Sarah Strong, Blakes, it's between Lauren Betts and Azzi Fudd. I think I'm going to go Betts. And this to me is arguing like last year, for instance, for putting somebody like Hannah Hidalgo on first team and Olivia Miles on second team, or even Tanaya Latson last year is maybe a better comp for scoring champion ends up a second team All-American. And maybe in hindsight, that should have been a flip because look how bad Florida State is without her and Timpson, right? I know that there's 50, 40, 90 stuff in here with Azzi. I know that, she really is the backcourt engine that's making it go for UConn. But to me, this is some of the parts stuff. And I have a hard time justifying this when you're candy assing through a Big East schedule that just is a laydown. And maybe that's cruel to the Big East. Maybe that's not fair to UConn because as I know you're about to note, Greer, like they have in their ranked matchups kicked the crap out of everybody that's come across their path. But I just feel like we got a grade on a curve in the Big East. There is no challenge for this team past January outside of one game against Tennessee. And I feel like that has to be factored into the voting. I do. And it sucks. And there might be a situation here where it's the number 1 pick that's a second team All-American, but I can't justify 2 UConn players on first team this year. I just can't. Not when you have 2 other teams that are similarly some of the parts. And on top of that, you've got a lot of really great individual achievement occurring this year as well. Someone's got to be an odd person out. I think it's got to be Azzi.
Well, first of all, I reject the notion that the 2 other teams are on the same tier or even. UConn is undefeated. And they are defending champions. Like, that's not nothing. That's not nothing in a year where we haven't, South Carolina
okay.
Back, right? Am I making that up?
No, you're right. I have a counter.
That's not nothing. That's not nothing. In a time where we're talking about like parity is higher than ever, and like granted, the job is not finished. I know that. Mm-hmm. But that's not nothing. If it was, everybody would be undefeated. Like South Carolina, UCLA would be undefeated. They're not. What is happening is UCLA is running away with the Big Ten. There is no real formidable. There has been no real formidable.
The Big Ten is not the Big East, man. Come on.
It is, but what I'm saying is they've got a 4 or 5 game lead in the Big Ten.
They do.
They got and she's also playing alongside
teams in that conference. Your biggest challenge is
Betts is on my team. Betts is on my team. But if we're using team success as the knock, Betts is also playing with 3 potential other first rounders right now in this year's draft. Not speculating in future drafts to come. In this year's draft. So the experience, right? This is the best senior class UCLA women's basketball has ever had. And it's not particularly close.
Not even close.
Yeah, I think also what goes unmentioned and undervalued about Azzi's season is the defensive prowess that she's shown all season long.
Agreed.
Versus formidable perimeter opponents. You talk about Jaloni Cambridge. Azzi was defending her in that game.
2.5.
Jazzy. We haven't talked about Jazzy Davidson, but who's probably the odds-on favorite to win National Freshman of the Year. And maybe you have your, druthers about fifth-year senior versus freshman. In reality, Azzi's played about the amount of games now as like a junior.
Yeah, I think it's. She's not fifth-year senior trend. I agree.
Who else? Hannah absolutely kept her in check in that matchup. Absolutely, especially after the history of Hannah performing against UConn and totally making a name for herself. In addition to all the Big East candidates as well, where actually too, in terms of like the Big East strength, it's really at the guard position. You get your Jasmine Bascos, your JD Eads has been injured for a large part of the season, but the cream of the crop of the Big East has largely been guards.
Yeah. All right. No. I
read your 5 out, and I think you might be in danger of doing this, of getting bored behind greatness.
I agree. I think there is some of that at play with UConn. The counter that I have, though, is can the same not be said for UCLA and Kiki Rice? So if you were to blind stat pick here, and Tyler, since you're in the host seat, you're the unbiased party.
Oh God,
17.9 points per game.
But that's the thing. I don't think we should do it blind when we have facts.
But why not?
We have facts.
Why not?
We're going to do it blind because Charlize Leisure-Walker and Gianna Neepkins alleviated a hell of a lot of pressure for Kiki Rice.
But that is same could be said for the.
Who's relieving the pressure off of Azzi Fudd in the guard rotation for UConn? Who?
You wouldn't put KK Arnold as someone that not in
and
the
if
same.
There's been times this year where Azzi literally had to run, and granted, I watch them, much closer than you do. There has been legitimate times where it's like, actually, KK, I need you to get off the ball, and I need to just handle this real quick, and I need to run our offense and make sure we get points on this possession. There have been a handful of moments like that this year, more than a handful, actually.
I can grant that. I think for me, the way I kind of see it is if we're looking at the argument for second player on a team of this caliber,
it should be the undefeated team. What? It should be the team that's undefeated.
This is not that wide of a chasm. Yo, Kiki Rice, hold on.
I'm not saying it's a chasm, but
Kiki Rice is having
to my other point. I've also watched Kiki Rice a ton this year. I'm in market. I've been in Poly. Tyler's sitting back and enjoying this, but I've also been in Poly. So these are the two teams actually that I've probably watched the most this season. It's no question. These are the two teams I've watched the most and the closest this year.
Why? I guess what I'm the circle I'm having trouble squaring here is if you are going to put Lauren Betts and Sarah Strong on first team All-American. And again, I don't know if there is a bit of inertia with putting Lauren Betts there. Genuinely.
Well, I don't know. I also don't remember.
Because when you look at last year as a first team All-American, she was a 20-9 player last year. Her averages have gone down. Granted, she's getting away from the rim a little more, but the scoring averages dropped down. The minutes have dropped down. Rebounds have dropped down. She's playing a different style now because there is so much more around her. But this is not the same type of season from a statistical standpoint. I don't even think it's the same type of season from a usage standpoint. So if you can argue, to me, I think the argument is if you want to take somebody off this list and replace them with Azzi, it's probably Betts. But then I don't know how you don't have somebody, one of the two of Lauren Betts or Kiki Rice, from a 27-1 UCLA team who's looking to be undefeated in the Big Ten for just the third time in the league's history.
I have Lauren Betts on my team.
I hear that.
But I'll also say
the chasm
I don't think that we should be measuring. I don't think that that's how we should be looking at the season. 1 year's body of work to next year's body of work. I don't think that there's a lot of circumstances that change from year to year, even within one program, one team. I don't think that that's the correct way to like argue that point. Bets on the defensive end, like UCLA is a top 10 defense, top 10 offense, top 5, I think actually. Like defensively, she is still anchoring every single thing that they do.
She is.
This is
and people are scared shitless.
I'm about to say if you counted like people driving away from the rim as blocks, like
which you might as well because it ends up being a missed shot, right?
Sure, yeah.
And then also I'll say what I'm just kind of unsure about is when we talk about like our comfortability, like eschewing traditions, not having a 5 on the list is crazy to me in college ball. Like we're not in a positionless place with the women.
I agree. I agree. I think you have to have a center. And that's why she's on my first team. I think you have to have center, forward, guard. I'm in the same place with you on that.
Yeah. So yeah, with that being said, I feel like again, Lauren Betts is a lock. The guard forward, if anything, that's like where the line gets muddled, right? Because you have forwards who legitimately initiate offense often for teams. And they're among some of the very best players in the country. But yeah, the 5 is still the 5 right now in this part of the world.
Gosh, I think you have a great argument.
I think the Joyce there's a wrong is crazy, answer. By the way.
That's fine. I'll take that. I don't think there's a wrong answer here necessarily. Like again, duality, right? We contain multitudes at No Cap Space. But like I do feel like this is a good argument to have in like a good debate that helps foster this game a little bit more. But I just have a real hard time sticking a second UConn player. I get it. You are on the chase to repeat. I have a real hard time putting Azzi there instead of someone else for first. Because I don't think anything's wrong with being on the second team, but I know that there is a certain prestige that comes along with being on that first team list. And it just
definitely.
And
look, like we're not
because you make a great argument, but I can't in all good conscience leave Cambridge off this. I have trouble doing that.
I think I would feel stronger about Jaloni's case if Ohio State solidly ranks second in the Big Ten.
That's valid.
Yeah,
that's I will take that point in fairness
because nobody picked them to finish second in the Big Ten this year. Not a single soul. Not even the beat writers in Columbus.
Yep.
The ones that didn't show up.
Hard. Tough beat. I mean, what's crazy is like there's other great players like in this list too that you could make. I don't think you could make a case for them, but I think they exist in this realm, right? Like Hidalgo, Miles, Crooks,
Booker. You muted.
That was the basketball gods basically cutting my mic when I was about to say Cody McMahon.
But no, like realistically, like
that was the Coach Joe. We do love you here.
No, I would be interested in like looking back and like, dude, this is gonna be when you look at the list of the All-Americans, like when we get the full all the teams, I'd be interested in knowing in terms of like individual caliber seasons. I don't know if we will have many years that stack up with this one. Like there's some seasons that are, and obviously there's been a lot of great players over the years, but in terms of the depth that we're going to see amongst this All-American list, dude, there's some crazy.
The honorable mentions are going to be.
That's what I'm saying. Like like Audie Crooks. Like there's a lot of years where even given the slide that Iowa State took, the stats alone would have been enough for Crooks in a whole lot of years to be probably pretty easily first team. Like if and at worst a lock for second, you know, that's not the case here at all. Hidalgo, the same way. I mean, like almost like near the top in national scoring leaders, like 5 steals per game, and she's not even like truly in the conversation for first team. Like that's ridiculous that we're at like that level of depth of talent across the nation right now. And I don't know, I'd have to like really go back and look at like past years and everything, like kind of do the comparisons across the board. I don't imagine that there's many statistical seasons when you're looking individually across the board from the depth of all the All-American lists that are going to match this year. Like this has been a pretty ridiculous stat season.
I think we're also in that era though, too, for what it's
agreed
worth.
for sure.
Agreed.
I think
if you look at last year's list, it's pretty tight, frankly.
Yeah, but I think like in terms of stats and people's ability to fill the sheet, like we're just kind of scratching the like that's
Agreed,
this is gonna be so common.
Hey, by the way, we had Juju this next year.
know?
By the way, there's like this is supposed to be the down year. Like I might add, in terms of talent. Like this is ridiculous.
Might frankly be the deepest since 2019. I think. I mean, granted, there is a chasm between third team and honorable mention there, but that year's AP first team was Nafisa Collier, Megan Gustafson, Sabrina, A.D. Durr, Tierra McCowan. Second team was Arike Ogunbowale, Kalani Brown, Christina Nigwe, Alana Smith, Bridget Carlton. Third team was Katie Lou Samuelson, Jess Shepard, Lauren Cox, Sophie Cunningham, and Jackie Young.
Jump scare.
And Jackie Young, yeah.
And Jackie Young. I mean, that's that's
really solid.
That's a deep All-American team. And again,
third team to number 1 overall pick.
Come on now.
Yeah.
So it is.
Shout out to Bill Lambier.
You could be a second team All-American and get overall draft. It is an egregious one.
Yeah. But this year, I mean, that's what makes like the fact that there's probably like 10 legitimate at minimum, like legitimate arguments that you can make for individual players for first team. Like that is fire. Like I love that.
Honestly, that's before you start getting into like some of the.
We didn't talk about Maggie Dugan, right? We didn't talk about.
Like that's before you start getting into the mid majors that are going to be honorable mention players, because like, no one is keeping an eye outside of a sicko like myself about what's happening in like the OVC right now. But like, you've got a girl over there in Mia Castro who is also flirting with a 50. She's not going to get it because her 3-point percentage is around 37. But like, this girl's flirting with a 50, 40, 90 and 24 points, 9.8 rebounds per game. And
Britt Prince, Shay out of Indiana.
Shay Jackie.
Like girls the women who are absolutely number 1 on that scouting report, and it does not matter.
Avery Conan at North Dakota State, who's doing a 19-11 right now, and is like she's 65, 42, 71 on her splits, and this is the best season North Dakota State's ever had. They're gonna win the Summit League for the first time ever in their history. You've got Danny Carnegie, who I think probably warrants honorable mention or third team honor, third team All-American honor.
Shout,
We haven't even talked about Madison Booker. We haven't talked about Olivia Olson, Kimora Johnson. I mean, this is this is wild, man.
Yeah.
Riley Weiss at Columbia, who I think has just been criminally slept on for the entirety of her career, and in a season in which we thought Princeton had this stuff locked up to the point where I was wondering, should Princeton be considered for a 4 seed? Columbia beat them twice, and they're probably going to win the Ivy League. Like, this is a mess. And dip down the list there, sitting right there with Lauren Betts in the points per game column is Clara Strack, who I think also warrants conversation in that All-America tier. I think it's going to be until next year that we have that conversation about her making that jump to potentially being a top 5 center in the country. But like, she's in that conversation. They're Bailey Maupin from Texas Tech is probably in the conversation, given what they've been able to do. Talia Scott from Baylor has been basically the only thing keeping them from disaster. I mean, this is a deep crew, man. And I think when we talk about the growth of women's basketball as a whole, I think that it to me speaks to the floor raising in this sport, right? The argument I think I've always had, go all the way back to the earliest AIAW years. Ann Myers-Drysdale could play today. Cheryl Miller could play today, and they would be All-Americans. Go back and watch tape. And I don't mean like go watch a highlight reel. The 1986 NCAA National Championship between USC and Texas is on YouTube for free. Go watch Cheryl Miller play. She is doing things that they do today. Yep. And yeah, shout out to Longhorn Legends. But the floor back then was such a massive gap that the difference between Cheryl Miller and the 5th or 6th selection of All-American was admittedly wide. The difference between, Sarah Strong notwithstanding, because I think she is I don't use generational lightly. She is a legitimately generational prospect. We have not seen a player like her.
Go trajectory. But
outside of her, the chasm between the top player in college basketball and the 15th best player in college basketball, not as wide as it used to be. And that portends great things for women's basketball writ large. But it is amazing how much the floor has risen in terms of how good your average women's college basketball player is now.
I want to before we wrap up here, I do want to pivot just for a second to
diabolically
Coach of the Year. Andrew, I'll start with you here. I think for me, obviously it's a lot of teams we've talked about already are the coaches that are going to be in the running here. I think Shea Ralph is immediately the name that comes to mind from Vanderbilt. I know Dawn Staley, I think, has an intriguing case here. I think Brenda Fries has a low-key good case with all the injuries Maryland has had to deal with. Obviously, Gino, Corey Close, just in terms of the top teams. Andrew, for you, where are you kind of leaning on this?
It's hard because I think frankly there's a couple of mid-major coaches that should probably be in consideration here too. Like, I think Rochelle Turner has done an amazing job at Murray State. They're 24-3, and I think out of any mid-major, I think they probably have one of the best chances with Charnice Curry-Jelks and Hallie Pook to knock off a team in the NCAA tournament. I think Ayla Gazzardo's done an unbelievable job with a previously DOA McNeese team that's 24-4 and going to win the Southland. She jumped from one Southland program to another. Her last team, Southeast Louisiana, is 4-22 after winning the Southland last year. Now she's taken another team and done it. Out of all of the mid-major coaches, I think Jory Collins at North Dakota State has the best case. 25-2, has finally seemingly knocked South Dakota State and South Dakota both off the perch of dominating the Summit League, which, if you know anything about Aaron Johnston's Jackrabbits, man, that's been their
Dakota ball is wicked, man. Those Dakotas,
UConn having a lay down path in the Big East. South Dakota State has sleepwalked through that conference for a decade now. And to be the in-state, or not the in-state, but the cross-state rival, finally do what you're doing. And this, if you are able to make the NCAA tournament, because it's probably a one bid league this year, even though I still think it should be two given South Dakota and North Dakota State's nets, but that's a separate conversation. If NDSU makes the tournament, it's the first time they've ever made it. I think that deserves and warrants a discussion. However, as much as I want to put Corey Close in here, because like I said, it's only the third time, if they see this through, it's only the third time ever that a Big Ten team will have gone undefeated in conference play. The last two were Carolyn Peck's 99 Purdue team that won the national title. And then this kind of funky 2014-15 Maryland team that went undefeated in Big Ten play, but they just ran up against your UConn buzzsaw Greer and Stewie in 14-15. If I got to vote, this is so unoriginal, bro, but I think it's Dawn Staley. This is just another, to me, it's just another year, and I said it on Sunday, of Dawn Staley flipping the bird to everyone who had, concerns with how she constructs her rosters and how she builds them. It just feels like shades of 24. You get bounced out by Caitlin, and everyone's like, ha, 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 you have two bigs and you can't shoot any threes. And your response is like, all right, bet we're going to shoot 40% from three as a team the next year. This past season, it was, ha, 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 what did you do? You don't know how to develop guards. You have a bunch of players that haven't stuck on WNBA rosters, and now I would argue they have the strongest backcourt that they've had since that 2020 team when it was Ty Harris and Henny. Like, You've got Raven Johnson, who, as you mentioned, Greer, I think the statistics just do not match how good of a player she is. It's a really hard argument to make. And I understand people are going to go, oh, triple single, right? Like, I know that that's out there. This is a pure eye test one, man. It really is. This is a ball nowhere pick. You have to watch the games and know ball to know what she does out there. You cannot box score watch with Raven Johnson. You simply just can't do it. Then you have Tanaya Latson and you have Tessa Johnson, who has probably stepped into the role as, I would argue, maybe the best guard that Dawn's had since Ty Harris. I mean, they're 27-2 and 13-1. They're going to win the SEC again in a year where we thought they'd be down. There were a lot of question marks around this team, man. There were. Ashlyn Watkins got hurt. Chloe Kitts got hurt. Like, it was fair to wonder.
The how of how this was going to happen, if it was going to happen, was a valid question.
I do think we can't lose sight of that, because where realistically did we think this team was going to be at the start of the year? I had them at a Final Four ceiling, but I don't think I had them at a Final Four floor. I think maybe they had the look of a team that had the potential to get bounced out in the Elite Eight maybe earlier if someone caught them on a bad day. But, like, you got a 6'6" French freshman and you're not even using her. Like, you don't need to. There's just something about that I think is very hard to ignore. And when we talk about Dawn Staley, the tactician, we talk about Dawn Staley, the X's and O's coach, I think this is one of her best coaching jobs. And I do think that's worth something. I don't know if that means a full vote, but I hate to go against Shea Ralph here, but
Muted.
When you two met. And I think that matters. I do.
Greer, where are you leaning right now?
Come on, UConn. Come on.
I mean,
that Goblin Mask is talking to you. Shea Ralph's here.
It doesn't, because nothing changes about him. Like, nothing changes.
I mean Shea Ralph.
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
It's UConn connection. She
said, okay, well, bring that mask, actually. Now that you mentioned it.
Yeah. I mean, yes. Do I think Shea has an incredibly compelling case? Absolutely. I do think that regular season loss to South Carolina, it was at CLA though, right? Or no?
Yeah,
it was at CLA. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. It was at CLA, which we know is
the
hardest
brutal
place to play in college basketball, women's college basketball.
Easily.
And yeah, it was a blowout. They lost by 30 or something like that.
Yeah. 103-74.
Yeah. 28. Am I doing the math right? 29.
Nasty word.
Quite. Sorry, George Bush, you're gonna pay.
We majored in words.
Kids were
however, comma. This is one where I'm okay with anyone kind of winning, if I'm being honest. Having had a front seat for what UCLA has put together this year. I think I might have to go Corey Close. I think I'm leaning Corey Close.
I have a hard time going against Corey here too.
Yeah, I think had a lot of turmoil in the portal from a season ago, right? This is a totally different team, honestly. There's a lot of pieces that stayed, but they've also incorporated 2 new pieces in Charlize Leisure-Walker and Gianna Neepkin seamlessly. I think players like Gabriela Jaquez and Kiki Rice having their best seasons ever as Bruins says a lot. And again, this is a team that is going like when rubber has really had to meet the road. This is a team that only goes like 7 deep. Right? They're not playing a bunch of. They had a girl that was on the softball team on their team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they've more than held their own. Kind of a down year for the conference. That's where I kind of like wrestle with the decision, right? Is like the reality is like your crosstown rival's best player was not available this year.
Does that mean the whole conference is down though? Like Iowa and Michigan will probably be in the Sweet 16. One of them is likely going to be in the Elite Eight. Minnesota's probably going to shock the hell out of somebody and go to the second weekend. Like I guess I just bristle a little at the notion that the Big Ten is the Big Ten of old, right? Like the Big Ten of 4 years ago, where we were like, okay, show us something when we get to March. It doesn't feel like that conference anymore.
I don't know that I'm willing to go that far, because what happened, like when Maryland first came to the Big Ten and just dominated it for the first 10 years of their admission into the conference or whatever it was, like it was a sustained period of dominance to a completely new conference. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the Big Ten this year. I think because I see them so much, I don't want to be biased too, right? Like the two teams in my market play in the Big Ten. So I've just seen a lot of them this year. But again, UCLA is running away with the conference, the regular season conference title. So it does kind of feel like that, right? But again, I still think in the NIL era, you're trying to make it back to the mountaintop being the Final Four. You're doing it on a very, very thin bench and team. I have been, and again, top 5 on both sides of the ball with defense and offense for UCLA. I think I'm just going to go Corey Close.
I like that.
Can't go wrong.
Let me ask this before we go. Does Katie Abramson-Samuelson have a case here at Georgia? She was on the hot seat this year. She had 2 awful years back to back in the SEC.
I think if you're putting that in the conversation, you also have to have Krista Gerlich in the conversation.
That's another one.
So
this is also a tough one. So honestly.
I think it could be I have if someone was to make the argument, I'm not mad at either of those, frankly. I mean, in terms of if we're talking program turnarounds, those are probably the 2 most glaring ones over the course of this season. In the major
ASU.
Oh, that's
dude. Molly Miller's in this conversation. If 100%.
It makes the tournament. They're kind of right on the bubble right now. If they go
0 when they're on the bubble.
This is just like a word for all ADs. It's just time to start investing in your women's basketball program. You can go places that you've never been as an athletic department if you do the right thing, and not just do. It's not even just it's the right thing. It's the time. All of it.
It's just right. It's the decision you need to make. It's not. It's not even. No. And I'm not mad at. I'm not mad at that tier and that kind of archetype of coaches. Obviously, you have the ones at the top, that we discuss, and the mid majors as well. But the idea of, and I'm fighting for my life out here, and you won. There's something to that.
I see Molly Miller passing out flyers on camp. You know what I'm saying? There's real. When we talk about college coaching, right? And all that goes into it.
I'll be honest, I don't think, just from a vibes perspective, I don't think there's a better football basketball tandem than Molly Miller and Kenny Dillingham. They got
the college feel on lock. It also was
next to each other. It's like that average SEC couple meme.
Yeah. And it really fits in Arizona State of all schools.
And they both do. She's got a very Arizona State look. He also has a very Arizona State look.
It just the PEMDAS just adds up real easily.
And then you have the cursed Funhouse mirror version of it, which is Lane Kiffin and Kim Mulkey.
Dear God.
I will never get over Kim Mulkey basically walking Lane out like he's a pool boy on a leash when he first arrives in Baton Rouge.
She would not let him go.
She's like, not.
It's the funniest picture, man. I'm so sorry.
She thought I got a new team manager. Is what that was.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. But there's some great ones. Kim Barnes-Arico's in here. That team's a top 10 team. We didn't think maybe 16th, 17th this year. I had them. I didn't have them in the top 10. I didn't have them almost beating friggin' UConn at the start of the year.
And if you have her,
and almost beating UCLA for that matter too. Both those games were 3-point games. There's this. It's a shame because actually, you know what? No, it's not a shame at all because you know what? I want the Final Four to be a real cream of the crop scenario. And I think 3 of these 4 teams more or less are locks for the Final Four. I think UConn, UCLA, and South Carolina, something catastrophic is going to happen where one or two or all of those teams do not end up in Phoenix come April. But I think this tournament, even from the early rounds, is going to be a freaking gauntlet. I mean, last year, for instance, you looked at the mid-majors last year and like there was a gap. Like you could tell there was a gap in
kind of to wait till the Speed 16-ish, pretty much.
It was a tournament in which you could kind of go on autopilot for the first weekend, kind of tune into the men. You knew it was going to be sort of chalky, and then you get over into this. But like, looking at this, Princeton or Nebraska in the first four at the 6-11, they could get Texas Tech. Texas playing a bad game. Rhode Island could absolutely get Notre Dame. Clemson and my boy Poppy Clipboard can absolutely get by USC in a 10-7. North Carolina as a 5 seed against a potential Mississippi State, Colorado first four feels diabolical. Do not underestimate Rice of all teams. Lindsay Edmonds, if you do not have her name on your coaches to watch for power conference jobs, she's there. They play a down Bama team, or at least projected to play a down Bama team with Charlie Cream's bracketology. Fairfield and Georgia as a 6-11. And I know Fairfield hasn't been as good as they've been in the past, but I think if you catch Georgia on a bad night, you could do that. Shoot, Georgia ends up with 2 good games. I could see them getting by Duke if those, framings hold, right? So there is a lot here in these opening 2 rounds that could go sideways really, really, really fast. And while I don't think any of the 1 seeds are in trouble, I mean, some of those 2s might.
2s and 3s, absolutely.
2s and 3s, absolutely could. Absolutely could. Could you foresee a situation or an environment where Duke is in trouble in their little pod, or TCU's in trouble in their pod? Louisville could be the type of team. I mean, if Louisville sticks and ends up with Vanderbilt, I don't think that's the case. But like, Louisville's a dangerous 3 seed because we know Jeff Walls is a voodoo magician in like this month. I mean, yeah, man. I mean, look, this time next week, we're going to be doing a ball up top that's already going to be talking about conference tournaments. So, we can already kind of preemptively preview that, but man, this is going to be a dope ass month. I cannot wait. I'm stoked.
Yes. So if you've made it this far in the show, subscribe, because if you don't know what we do in March, the marathon begins, where we are live every single night in March on YouTube. So make sure you're tapped in for that. We're going to have boots all over. The credentials will be at the Final Four. We'll be at the regionals. We will be in our home markets. If we got a team here, we'll be like, the boots are going to be booting over the course of March and into April in Phoenix. So make sure you're tapped in here on the YouTube. Make sure you're tapped in at No Cap Space WBB.com. If you're listening on podcast platforms, subscribe there. Like, subscribe, share. It really does make a ton of difference. Again, here on the YouTube, we're on the way to 7K, 10K subs. Our next couple goals that we're trying to reach here over the course of the next couple months, and especially here in March. So if you're not subscribed, and make sure that you are, if you think you are, make sure you're subscribed. And we will talk to you very, very soon.